Good afternoon, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are in this world. I am on my way. It might be a little noisy right now, but I'm on my way to drop off my absentee ballot because I will be in Canada most likely when the November elections hit for the US. So reminder to send your absentee ballot as soon as possible. Such a beautiful day today. Oh my god.
At first, I was hesitant, like a skeleton. You 20, but intelligent. Now all the
And I'm back.
so relevant.
Alright, so let's dive right into it. I want to talk about what it was like to go through my yoga teacher training, or YTT as most people know. First, I want to say that every experience is different. Every style of yoga is different, so mine might not look like your experience whatsoever. First things first, I was 19 when I first started the yoga teacher training. I was really unsure if it was a good idea considering I was so young. I had this on-off again experience of liking yoga. Every now and then I would stop and take a 2-week break or maybe a month break of doing yoga, and so I was unsure if it was even a good idea to put in that much money or time or effort into training. And as a young person, I was afraid that people were not going to take me as seriously, and someone who was so small, I didn't know if I was the right person to be a teacher, to be confident enough to stand up in front of a classroom and tell students what to do. Now, 4 years later, after taking that experience, I can say I'm very glad I did, because I enriched my love for yoga and I grew my confidence in a way I never would have expected. When I posted on Instagram that I was going to do this YouTube video, I got a few questions here and there asking about certain things that people were curious about, so I'll kind of go into that as we speak. Now, my yoga teacher experience was here in the States, in Michigan, and it was 3 months long. There was about 2 classes a week, 2 to 3, I believe. It was kind of a lot. You are learning, you're writing, you're reading, you're watching a movie, you're learning about Sanskrit, you're learning about, the physical body, you're learning about the spiritual side of yoga, you're learning about mudras, bandhas, breath work, everything. And for those who are afraid that they might be saturated, I feel it really depends on who you are, and also it really depends on how you enjoy the experience. When I started with my group, it was a very diverse group. It was people of all ages. I think there was even someone in their 50s or 60s that was taking the course, and I was 19 at the time. So it was super diverse. There was a lot of different ethnic backgrounds. So it was really perfect for any age group, any background. I began teaching on my own to my Latino friends and neighbors. During that time, I moved to Canada right after, so my experience teaching in a studio actually never happened. I've been teaching on my own without a studio by receiving donations only until recently. I started getting paid this year to teach classes, which is kind of absurd considering that it took me 4 years to get paid, but that's only because it's a unique case. I was traveling so much, and it's hard to, be hired by a different yoga studio if it's not by the one that trained you. Why did I start yoga teacher training? I was in a studio and I was starting to get into yoga. I was going maybe twice a month or more, and I got to know the owner of the studio. Her name was Risa. I'll actually put her studio name in the description so you guys can hit her up if you're interested in a yoga teacher training. My mom was there with me, and she kind of pushed me over to the owner of the studio, and she said, "Hey, look, my daughter is interested in a yoga teacher training, but she's not sure." And so we had a little heart-to-heart, and me just explaining that I was unsure because I had an on-off relationship with yoga, and the fact that I was young, I wasn't sure if people would take me seriously. So she explained to me that there was also another guy who had gone through the yoga teacher training, and he was already teaching. He was super good at setting the vibe for a class. It was almost like a hit class every time he taught because his voice was so loud. He was just perfect. Like, he was doing his job perfectly. So when I saw that he was able to do it at my age, I was like, you know what? Okay, that makes me feel better. And then also, it's pretty expensive. So my 3-month experience was about $3,000 in all. And so I was afraid that I would take this course and end up not making any money, and you know, my investment would actually have been just a really expensive purchase. Overall, I would say it took me a really long time to start making money off of teaching yoga, but that's just because I dragged my feet about it and I was moving around different countries a lot, so that was just a very personal experience that is unique to me. It doesn't mean it will happen to everyone. So someone asked, do you ever get tired of yoga during the training since there are so many hours? I, of course, got tired of yoga at one point, but it was not because it was so many hours. It was just the fact that, you know, maybe I was too tired that day or whatnot. For me, it was really interesting. It's something that you have to learn to take on, like head on. You have to accept that you will make mistakes as a teacher. You have to understand that you're gonna have a lot of moments where you have to kind of fake it till you make it. And I think that's why I didn't lose interest. There's so many things that you can do as a yoga teacher to keep learning that, at least for me, it was always interesting. It was always interesting. I also got a question if I started resenting yoga. At one point, I actually started falling more in love with yoga going into this experience because I started learning about acro yoga. I started learning new poses. I was worried that I was going to be learning ashtanga 24/7 when that's not all yoga is. It's just the basic, but we have to know what ashtanga is to learn further on. But there are so many styles, there's so many things that you can do to stay creative, to stay diverse in your teaching, in creating flows, that no, I did not start resenting yoga. I actually started digging in deeper and deeper because there's no end to it. There's infinite learning. At one point, we got to do a 8-hour meditation where we all came and we were not allowed to make eye contact with other students. We were not allowed to talk with other people. It was a very intense 8 hours of just meditating for 2 or 3 times in a row after about 2 or 3 breaks. In between, we were fed for lunch, like vegan food. And I can say that I began to have a more unique and in-depth connection with myself. I really, really, really loved the spiritual side of yoga. And that was around the same time that I had depression, I had eating disorders going on. And so it helped me put my energy in something better, in something that could help me grow as a person, help me bloom, and understand what is going on in my head, and understand this whole new way of living consciously. Cleansing your mind and your body in so many different ways, and that's what I found really beautiful about the experience. So overall, I had one main teacher and then there was one assistant teacher. She was learning how to teach us and how to structure the class, considering that she was probably going to be the teacher, the main teacher for the other yoga teacher trainings. They were good at explaining stuff. The only downside I had was that they did not explain things in a way that could be understood for everyone. For me, it was kind of confusing because I felt like information was just kind of shot here and there, and it was hard for me to connect it all into one piece. And then the only other downside was the fact that when we finished our teacher training, we had to do feedbacks where you teach the class and they give you feedback as to what you need to improve, what you did well, and also you had to be tested in order to teach at the yoga studio. The yoga instructor, the main teacher, is the studio owner, right? So she's the one who gets to decide if she hires you to be a teacher. She's a very strong and vocal person, which is great, but for some people it definitely scares them. So I think that a lot of students actually never did the feedbacks because they were scared of her feedback. They were scared of not having a perfect flow or not teaching as well as she wants. What was really cool was that I learned to teach ashtanga and vinyasa classes, which includes slow burn, hot vinyasa, yin, blend. Got to take free classes during that entire time. Nowadays, most yoga classes look like a young yoga teacher instructing her class without yoga clothing or Lululemon, with, you know, her water bottle and her block and all of that. But what I really liked is that the teaching that I got was more of the ancient practice, the Sanskrit, the breath work, the spirituality that came with it. That's what I really held on to and that I love. It showed me that yoga is not about flexibility. It's about an internal growth. It's about reflecting internally. It's about taking time for yourself, because when you quiet down your mind, when you quiet down everything that is going on internally, you will receive whatever information you need to move on in a peaceful way. Meditating creates space for whatever you need to do in the future. What I really liked about the experience is that we had to learn all the Sanskrit chakras. You learn the basics, you learn what's behind Sanskrit words, you learn what every pose means spiritually, physically, mentally, and you are learning to cue in every single pose. You learn how to focus on the breath while cueing the poses. That is one of the hardest things, to constantly be aware of the breath while you're teaching. And something that is really hard to do is staying on cue with the music while trying to cue your students into a pose, while also trying to feel the vibe that they must be feeling in the moment, to know when to cue the next thing, or when to quiet down, or when to jump the music a notch higher. So that's a little tough, but overall I think 50% or more of the students that were in the program finished the course and started teaching. Officially, I started teaching yoga during the course. I would teach my Latino group here in Ann Arbor, and I would not get paid for it though. I was always giving classes to just practice on my own, use my friends as guinea pigs. It took me a really long ass time to finally start asking for money. I actually didn't start asking for money in return until this year. Let's talk about how teaching has affected me currently with COVID. It's kind of hard, honestly, considering that I can only teach outdoors. So when there's rain, there's a thunderstorm, when it's cold out, it can be tough to have a strong customer base. Definitely the weather has a huge effect on if I am able to teach or not that day. Another thing is that I'm not able to adjust my students. That actually happened to me the first time I taught when I was back here in Michigan. I adjusted a student of mine, and I felt so bad because right after that I realized that we're not supposed to touch each other, and thank goodness I don't have COVID, or else I'm sure that she would have freaked or I would have had symptoms by now. But that was really hard to get a hold of. Because I'm teaching so many people of different ages and backgrounds at the moment, there are some people that have certain injuries, but because I'm not able to adjust them, or the crowd is so big, or, you know, sometimes my voice can't project enough into the park where I teach at, sometimes it's really hard. One of the questions is, I'm worried I'll start to resent yoga if I'm dragging my feet to all the required hours. Honestly, it's just like any class. It's like going to college or university. It's just something that you have to do. But for me, it's much more interesting than going to a university class. I was actually excited to go to the classes. I really enjoyed the people that were, you know, students alongside me. Everyone had such good vibes. It was beautiful. Another question is, do you ever get tired of yoga during the training since there are so many hours? No. Actually, I fell more in love with yoga than how I was before I took the program. Someone asks for how long did it take to do the program. It took me 3 months, but it took me about a year to fully finish my experience and get certified. That was only because I was really afraid of not perfecting my technique before doing a feedback or being tested on my teaching. Please drop in a question. I'll try to answer it to the best of my knowledge. I hope this is enough information. If you are curious about yoga teacher training, I advise you to do your research. I think it's a great idea. It's a great investment, whether you will end up teaching after or not. It's a beautiful practice that I will keep with me for the rest of my life. And it's something that I see as a tool. I've always wanted to travel my whole life, and I have been, thankfully. But being a yoga instructor, I have so many options now to teach in Bali, Thailand, Morocco, anywhere. So it's a beautiful experience that, like nurses, like doctors, you will forever continue to learn. You will always have more knowledge at your fingertips. It's not a practice or a career that you will know too much about. That's what's beautiful about it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you are this far into the video, thank you so much. If you like the video, it would help me so much if you like and subscribe. I hope everyone is staying safe. If you're interested in yoga teacher training, go for it. It will change your life, I promise you.